Guys, I've got something cool to tell you about. As an engineering leader, a manager, and an engineer myself, I'm geeking out over a new product I'm just discovering that helps me with each of these points of view. The great team at SEMA, builders of the SEMA Intelligence Platform, have been working on what they call the Product Roadmap Radar. It's this integrated solution that uses generative AI to observe your code and Jira in order to summarize, synthesize, and make it easier to deliver your roadmap. It not only helps keep your roadmap on track, but it helps reduce the time engineers spend in meetings. Cue all the engineers clapping. The Product Roadmap Radar is extremely easy to set up. This only takes about 5 minutes. Just enable your integrations and let AI do all the mapping for you. My favorite part? I'm glad you asked. The radar doesn't just tell you about your roadmap. It suggests changes you need to make based on the code that's been written and the stories that have been addressed. No commenting, no special setup, all generative AI. It gives you an outside view of your roadmap based on the code and projects a target completion date based on outstanding work and activity. Again, no comments, no special setup. It even detects shadow work when development is being done but Jira isn't being updated. I'm pretty jazzed about it, and I think you will be too. Take a second to watch a short but awesome demo video. Go to codestory.co/PRR to watch it today. You'll like what you see. This episode is sponsored by Postman. Postman is the world's leading API platform, trusted by 98% of the Fortune 500 and over 40 million developers. Tap into APIs from 18,000 plus companies to power agents that make smarter decisions. Learn more at postman.com/podcast/codestory. This message is sponsored by Melee Search. Today, search isn't just a feature, it's a cornerstone. And Melee Search gives your users the experience they need with lightning-fast performance, full-text search, AI usage, and multimodal capabilities. Melee Search delivers relevant results in less than the blink of an eye. Use the promo code CODESTORY at checkout to get 2 months free at meleesearch.com. That's MEILI search.com. This episode is brought to you by Paddle. Don't settle for less when you can have more, MOR, with Paddle, your merchant of record. Eliminate the headaches of payments, grow your revenue everywhere, and focus on what you do best, building your product. Get more revenue with less hassle at paddle.com. This episode is brought to you by PropelOff. People take authentication for granted, but it's more than how customers log into your product. It's how you manage your relationship with your users. The easiest way to make authentication your advantage is to use PropelOff. PropelOff is more than just functional. It's powerful. With tools like Managed UIs, Enterprise SSO, robust user management features, and actionable insights, PropelOff adapts as your product grows. And the best part? When Auth is effortless, your team can focus on scaling, not troubleshooting. That means more releases, happier customers, and more growth for your business. Save dev time, win over your customers, and propel your business forward with PropelOff. Check them out at propeloff.com. That's PROPELAUTH.com. Hello, listeners. Welcome back to the Code Story podcast. In this episode, I'm talking with Kolton Andrus, CEO and founder of Gremlin. You may remember previously when we spoke with Matt, the prior CTO of the company. Since that time frame, a lot has changed. Gremlin has gone through several arcs and foundational changes that are leading to not only assessing weaknesses in your infrastructure through chaos engineering, but walking you through how to fix them, and eventually fixing them for you. Kolton is going to take us through those arcs, including leadership transitions, product changes, and how AI may or may not fit in the world of SRE. Well, Kolton, thank you for being on Code Story. Thanks for being on the show today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Really excited to dive into Gremlin and all of the latest updates, latest iterations of the platform and of the team at large. You know, we've talked to Matt before on this podcast, but I'm very curious to learn more about you. So before we dive into things, tell me a little bit more about you. You know, technology, yes, but also who you are as a person.
Yeah, well, I'm a father of 5. That's usually remarkable in today's day and age. I got married young, so I have kids in college down through kids in high school. Bit of an outdoor family. Grew up in the West. We love the mountains. Just got back from a trip driving all around the West. Doing some hikes and hanging out in Moab at 100-degree weather. Enjoying following the Colorado River down through the state and into Utah. When you've had enough kids, you'll get a couple of dogs to throw on the end. My 2 oldest kids have moved out, and now we have 2 golden doodles that have been with us 8 and 4 years, and they're basically the next 2 in line. So we got to keep the whole caravan running.
That's awesome. Okay, let's dive into the meat of it. So we're going to talk about the next iteration of Gremlin, but I want to set the stage here a bit, because your time at Amazon and Netflix, they were big influences and what got you started in chaos engineering and reliability testing? What actually got you started down this path of chaos engineering? Can you tell me what was so foundational about your time there?
Going back 16, 17 years now, early in my career, I'd worked for a couple startups, but I had the opportunity to join Amazon. And the team I was on was the retail website availability team. So it was our job to make sure the website didn't go down. And we did a lot of things to prevent that. We did a lot of postmortems and incident reviews. We owned what's called the call leader program at Amazon, which are the set of individuals who respond on behalf of the company when there's a large scale incident. But that wasn't enough, is what I learned when I joined. We needed more, and we really needed something to get in front of the problem. And so everything we were doing was fundamentally reactive. And some great people I was with, came up with the idea, hey, we should be proactively testing this idea. And so in Amazon fashion, we wrote up a 1-pager, hey, we want to release the gremlins out. We want to see how people respond. We want to go find the issues in the system and make them better. And it was my job as an engineer to go build that platform. So I built, something very similar to what we have today at Gremlin, a service, a web interface, an API, a set of fault injections, a set of safety mechanisms to allow people to run it, a set of reporting to be able to track it and know what happened. And we had a lot of success with that at Amazon. We had hundreds of teams used it. We saw a lot of value in the approach. And so that was really, my taste of this at Amazon. People always ask me, oh, you worked at Netflix. Did you write Chaos Mode? And the answer is no, I did not write Chaos Mode. While we were building our, software at Amazon, Netflix had come up with the idea of Chaos Monkey and were really taking their first steps, implementing it and publicizing it. And I was aware of that. I thought it was super cool that they were pushing the envelope with that. And so after my 4 years and a week at Amazon, after my tour of duty was done, I went and interviewed, and I went and found the team at Netflix that was really innovating around fault injection and chaos engineering. And I joined that team. And good news, they were doing a great job. Good news for me, there was more to be done. So I had the opportunity to come in and help the next generation fault injection platform be built for Netflix. I went through and helped all of the API, the proxy, all of the mid-tier services do a bunch of failure testing. And ultimately, we saw pretty big gains. When I joined, Netflix was at about 4 nines of uptime, or about 8 hours of outage a year. And after we completed this work, we had gotten to the 4 nines mark of, under an hour, about under 45 minutes of outage time in the course of the year. And so, yeah, those two, examples of, really sharp companies with really sharp engineers needing something more, needing better tooling and guidance to really go out and get in front of this really complex problem, really set the stage for, what was to come for me.
That's so cool. And down from 8 hours to 45 minutes is radical change. Even, 8 hours in a year is tiny, but down to 45 minutes is incredible.
Yeah. In the 3 nines world, you get several 20 to 30 minute outages throughout the year. Not one a month, but close. In the 4 nines world, you get a few 5-minute outages in the year. And the system really needs to be able to self-heal and quickly recuperate, or else you're going to blow that SLA.
For sure. Okay. So I think it's important, before we move into what, the next iteration of Gremlin is, give my audience a reminder of what Gremlin is. Coming from what you just described as foundational into who you are as an engineer and the experiences you have, I think defining what Gremlin is going to be helpful for us to move into the next iteration. So just give the audience a bit of the pitch.
Yeah. So I would say, let's start with what is chaos engineering. Chaos engineering is we want to go out and purposely inject failure in order to understand how the system responds in order to make sure it responds correctly. It's a bit like distributed system testing. We want to make sure the distributed system works correctly. And Gremlin is a tool that's built to enable, safe, secure, simple to use fault injection. The first iteration of the product, we really took what I'd learned from Amazon and Netflix and built that. This is V3. Let's take what worked at these other two companies and let's go build that product and put it in the hands of customers. And that took us a couple of years. We had a lot of things to learn. We had to go build it. When you build something internal to a company, you get to cheat a little bit when it comes to some of the security, some of the mechanisms. You have a lot of internal infrastructure you can build toward. When you build for the world, you have to handle all the edge cases. And so, we went out, we built our Gremlin agents. Those are the things that inject the failure. We're able to inject all manner of failures, CPU, memory, disk, IO, network level failures, really to simulate any kind of failure that a customer might experience in production. We had to build a set of, workflow engines and things like scenarios on top of that really allow people to compose them and create more interesting failure modes. And a lot of specifics around permissions and making sure the failure behaves as the customer expects and as it would in the real world. And so that in a nutshell was kind of, the first iteration of Gremlin. I would call it the chaos engineering platform.
So then, when we were talking before, you mentioned a few arcs. That's probably the first arc of the company. I think there are a couple more. There's one in between, and then there's one now. Can you kind of talk to me about those, about the company arcs? And then I think that'll bring us into what the next iteration of Gremlin is today.
I think the first arc is really characterized by what I would call field of dreams DevOps. If you build it, they will come. And that's what we saw at Amazon. That's what we saw at Netflix. People were culturally aligned. If you built the right tools, in general, you could get the right behavior. And so we saw a lot of our customers try this in kind of the late 2010s, where they went out, they brought in a tool, they brought in an enablement center, and they said, hey, this is a great idea. You should do this. And then they just kind of hoped that the right thing would happen. And I say this, I guess I'm a little jaded because I've been through it. That's what we had thought what might work. That's what we had hoped would work. But really what we found is that was a little spotty. Customers would apply it on this team, but not on that team. The SRE team might be experts and they know exactly what kind of failure modes they want to create and how to do them. But, 2 levels down on an engineering team that's, barely on call or hasn't had to do a lot, that the SRE team has done, they struggled. They weren't really sure what tests to run. They weren't really sure if their system responded correctly. And we saw at the company level, teams really struggled to coordinate and to scale these efforts. There was a bit of, everybody kind of did what they wanted and results, were kind of wildly varied as a result. And so that really led to, the second arc of the company. We built this great chaos engineering platform. We built this great tool. We had a lot of capabilities. But sometimes customers were just struggling to use it, struggling to get the value that they expected, or they did a lot of work and they weren't really seeing the results. And so what we learned is, and I wrote a blog post about this. It's chaos engineering, necessary, but not sufficient. You need the chaos engineering. It's important. It's a valuable tool, but you need some process and structure around it. And so we went back into the lab. We thought hard about it. We thought hard about how we use Gremlin and what we would like to see and what we'd learn from our customers. We built something that's really an extension of the original chaos engineering tooling that we called reliability management. And what we did with reliability management is we layered on top of the chaos engineering, a concept of services, a concept of how reliable those services were. So we added a reliability score. We came up with a default test suite. Hey, if you're not sure where to begin, you should run these tests. And we did a lot of work to integrate with the customer's systems to be able to measure the health of their systems so that we would know whether or not they were passing the tests or whether the system was struggling when we were running a test. And we did a bunch of work. There's some nice side effects that came out of that. One is dependency discovery. Originally, we thought, oh, everyone's going to have tracing. We just need to tie into their tracing systems and we'll have full knowledge of the system. We'll be able to do all these great experiments and recommendations. Truth is, no tracing tool is really one. Most companies don't have a ubiquitous solution here. And so we did something, kind of hacky, engineering, where we built our own, dependency discovery. We look at the network traffic, we look at the ports, we understand what people are talking to. Pretty tricky when you get into the service mesh world, but that allowed us to, show people, hey, your software depends on this other service. And that's actually one of those important aha moments is you can test your software and then somebody else's software fails and brings you down and you get surprised. So we wrap this all up, the test score, the test suite, the guided tests with a set of reporting. Because the other thing we learned is that if leadership doesn't have a way to measure, a way to see improvement, a way to hold people accountable, you really don't see, the effort put into it. You don't see the resources provided to it. And so this is something that I think a lot of SRE and teams doing this work have learned over time. It's great to do a lot of work, but if you can't show the value of your work, you're going to struggle when budgets get cut or when headcount gets laid off, or even when it comes to time to promotion. If you can't show that you've made the system more reliable, it's hard to raise your hand and say, look, we should really be promoted for the good work we've done. So the scoring and that visibility really help close the loop on that.
It's really interesting to hear about some of the side effects that came from, I say side effects. Side effects sounds negative, but like the sideline benefit of dependency discovery, that's interesting. Okay, in 2022, there was a leadership transition, right? And you increased your focus on the product itself. What are some of the most exciting developments that have come from the last 3 years from your standpoint and digging into the product?
Yeah. So we're really talking about the second arc here. So first arc, I was CEO, had Matt, who's been on your show prior, as my CTO. We went out and built the original company, the original chaos engineering product. 2022, I brought in a CEO so that I could go focus on the product and engineering side. And that's where I took over as CTO and I really went deep into product and engineering. And that's where a lot of reliability management, the test suites, the scoring, the dependency discovery, the monitoring integrations, all of that is really what we built the last couple of years, that we have conviction in, that we felt was the right move and have seen be the right move over the last year or two in market. And then, we're really just wrapping up that arc recently. I just took back over as CEO about a month and a half ago. We have Sam Rossoff, who's actually, a coworker of mine at Amazon, who then went on and worked at Snapchat and was an early engineer there while I was at Netflix, who is in the CTO role. And that's, we've kind of finished this reliability management product arc. And now we're looking at the next set of objectives for Gremlin.
Awesome. That's a perfect segue into where I want to go. So what is that? What is the next arc for the company? And I think we're calling it Gremlin 3.0, right? When we were talking offline. But the next iteration that you see moving forward.
One of the things we've always tried to do at Gremlin is make it easy to do the right thing. And that sounds simple, but it's actually really hard because you really have to find things that are easy to use, easy to understand, and incentivize the right. And so the way we describe it internally is the first version of the product, we inject the failure, you, the engineer, you go do the homework to see if your system responded correctly. And then you, the engineer, you go fix the problem. And, that's Gremlin's not doing as much as we could in that scenario. So in the second version, Gremlin 2.0, we'll inject the failure, but because we have access to your monitoring and your system, we'll tell you if the system responded well or not. But if there's a problem, you, the engineer, you still need to go figure it out and fix it. So the third arc is very simple. We want to go help them fix it now. So we want to inject the failure safely and securely. We want to tell you, did your system respond correctly? And if not, how did it respond incorrectly? But then we want to give guidance. We want to tell people concretely, hey, here's how to go fix this problem. And I think this is a fun conversation because this could go anywhere from, hey, we saw this Java exception in your log lines. We can Stack Overflow, et cetera, give you some guidance on how to go fix that exception. But we can also derive patterns. And we have a lot of customer data around testing various failures. So we can be pretty confident, oh, you need a circuit breaker around this dependency because this dependency fails often. Or you need a better timeout when you're talking to this dependency because your requests start timing out because latency grows too high. So in a nutshell, that's what we want to do. We want to give people actionable, credible advice on how to go fix their system, not to just uncover the weaknesses within it.
That's super exciting and also really valuable, having the insights, seeing what is broken or what is needing addressing, and then being able to go do that work itself. And, okay, in the industry at large, right, you can't, open a browser without seeing the buzzword AI and a million articles about it, right? So where does AI fit into Gremlin's world, right? Where does it fit into chaos engineering in general? I'm curious about your viewpoint there and wondering if you can, unpack where it fits and where it doesn't and how you see things there.
Yeah. So I'm probably on the spectrum, cautiously optimistic or a bit skeptical when it comes to AI. And I'll tell you why. The reason for that is when you're dealing with distributed systems and you're dealing with the kind of issues we run into in operating an Amazon or Netflix scaled system, you really want deterministic results. You really want to trust your result. I mean, so much of what we do in distributed systems is around consistency and ensuring that things are consistent when they should be. And so introducing the current flavor of AI, the LLM, based version, that's probabilistic by nature. You might get two different answers to the same question. You might get varied results based on the context. So I don't think it's great at, debugging and testing distributed systems because we want very precise results. When it comes to a lot of folks are super excited about maybe the AI SRE. Hey, we'll just let AI be our SRE. We don't have to wake up people in the middle of the night. They'll take care of things. And that one always reminds me of a quote that I'll paraphrase from the IBM days, which said, the computer can never be held accountable, so it must not make a choice, must not make decisions where accountability is required. And I think that's very fitting because, how many customers today are willing to turn on AI in production to go take actions that, if done correctly, could bring their entire system down? I think people aren't quite ready for that and that we need a bit more maturity before we're willing to jump into those.
I couldn't agree more. That quote is really interesting because they can't be held accountable for the decisions. They can't be held accountable for the results, right? We are held accountable for those results themselves. There's also just not enough reliability for something like SRE type of work, which the core of the acronym is reliability. What do you think needs to happen with AI, or where does AI need to go or needs to establish or something like that in the models, in the things like that could make it more reliable, more useful, have a place in chaos engineering or in the industry at large? Where do you think it needs to go?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think AI today has a place, and it's that it's a better way to interact with computers. I think the natural language processing, the ability to talk to computers like people is super useful. So I think there's a bunch of applications of AI within Gremlin or within the industry as a whole that are valid and will be useful and people will come to find to be quite impactful. I'm just not convinced we're willing to give it the reins and let it go wild. And so, yeah, I think, to me, on one hand, AI has been trained by a lot of docs on the internet, a lot of our content. So if you ask AI, chaos engineering, how should I do this? What should I do here? You get pretty good answers, but are you going to get answers that you would, automatically take action on? So I think it's the reasoning executive function. There's a lot of critical thinking when you're going through outages. What changed? There's a bit of a feel you develop. We've got a lot of wetware that helps us with pattern matching that gets applied when you're debugging these kind of issues. And so, some of that will certainly come to fruition, but I don't know. Yeah, I think, I need credible deterministic results when it comes to distributed systems for me to want to trust it to take actions on my behalf. I think Skynet, if it took over tomorrow, would be in power about 3 days before an outage took it down. And I think all the AI generated code is just work for my team and my customers to go do for the next decade, while things become more of a black box and are going to require more testing and validation to ensure we trust it. So I'm optimistic that we'll have plenty of work to do for the next, 10 or 20 years until things get really good or scary, depending on your perspective.
Yeah, no, I think that's the critical term there, deterministic results. Okay, so then, talking about that and talking about all that we've talked about with the Arc 1, Arc 2, and now looking forward into Arc 3, and, where the state of AI is and where the state of the industry is, what are you most excited about in the next chapter for Gremlin? You've touched on several things, and, I could probably cherry pick from some of the answers you gave, but what are you most excited about for this next chapter for Gremlin and for also the broader SRE space?
I'm excited about a lot of things, honestly. We've got a great team and we're working well together. Everything's humming. So, you just enjoy your day job, enjoy the people you work with. That's a big quality of life for me. Product wise, we got a couple things my sales team is pretty excited about because they're things that customers need. Region evacuation, zone evacuation, data center failover is something that's traditionally been a business continuity disaster recovery function. I think in today's world, the expectations have changed and we expect that systems are able to fail over live and that people are able to show that they fail over. And so you go back 5 years, everyone has a failover plan. Maybe they run it once a year in some limited fashion. I want to help teams and companies get to the level that Netflix is at, where they can do an active failover in 5 minutes. And they do it every couple of weeks just to make sure everything still works and works the way they expect. Beyond that, I think there's the next thing that is less technologically exciting but important is just we have a lot of customers that are financial customers or government customers where privacy, data access, access to the internet are all important dimensions to weigh. So we built an on-premise version of Gremlin for our customers that are a little more wary to have a bit more control. And as I mentioned, if you're working for someone like the government, you want them to have, a very secure way to do this testing. We want all of our, government software to be reliable and to work when it's needed. We also don't want to introduce, new vulnerabilities or attack vectors. So it's important for us to do that private edition, which we've recently completed. But yeah, I think the exciting one is, hey, we want to take the current developments around LLMs and AI, and we want to fold them into the product in a way that makes it easier for customers to get the value that they expect. And so that's, much more as I was describing with that third arc. Hey, you've run the test and the test failed. Now we want to tell you why the test failed. We want to give you a set of actions that you could go take to correct that failure. And maybe someday when I trust the computers enough, we'll let we'll let Gremlin go fix those failures on behalf of the customer. But for now, we'll just guide them, tell them how to do it, and make sure they're able to get to the outcome that they desire.
Well, that's super exciting. I'm ready for that day. I'm ready for that guidance. And I think it's a fantastic approach moving forward and a killer platform just in general. So it's really interesting to hear, the 3 arcs, the future of Gremlin, as it runs alongside all of the changes in the industry. I've got one more question for you, Kolton, and it's kind of a question I ask most of the guests. I'm really curious what advice you'd give someone who's about to take on building the next big thing, or maybe they've built it and they want to show it to you and they're excited about maybe stepping into the startup world. You've been through, obviously several arcs, right? You've seen a lot, you've gone through a lot, you've had many roles within your, journey at Gremlin. What advice would you give that person having gone down this road a bit?
I think probably the biggest thing I've learned over the last almost 10 years that I've been doing this is, if you are smart and you work hard, you can figure out a lot of the details. And what's hard is in the startup world, you get a ton of advice from every angle: investors, employees, advisors, the market. Twitter's got a million things to say. Everybody's an expert and they want to tell you why you're doing it wrong or one simple trick to do it right. And, what I came back to, and I went through this, I went and brought, sought out and brought other people into the company that had more experience in different areas than I had. So I could learn from them. And so I could see where I was falling short or where I could do better. And in the end, I feel pretty comfortable being back in the seat because I've seen a lot of approaches. I've seen a lot of people try it, but no one has the magic answer. No one has the silver bullet. No one's going to just figure it out for you and it's going to be done. So good news, bad news. But the flip side is you as the founder, you as the person who's really cares who is deeply invested and who, wants to see this idea be as successful as it can is often the best qualified person to really drive that vision and all of the pieces that are attached to it. And so, there's a bit of the imposter syndrome. You just got to go out there, you keep learning, but know that your efforts and your hard work are going to, teach you a lot. You're going to get better and you're going to be in a good place. You have learned a lot on the journey by the end. So yeah, trust in yourself, listen to advice, but don't take as much of it as you think you should. And you'll figure a lot of it out along the way.
Well, that's fantastic advice. Well, Kolton, I appreciate you being on the show today, telling the stories, the arcs of Gremlin, get a new, fresh perspective on where the company is, where the platform is, where you're taking it, and all the things that have gone along. I really appreciate you outlining your perspective on AI and where it fits and where it doesn't, and really excited about the future of the product. Well, again, thank you for being on the show, Kolton.
Thank you very much, Noah.
I couldn't be more excited about the future of Gremlin. Given the arcs the company has gone through, it's evident that Kolton has built foundational layers into the platform and is steering the ship towards responsible chaos engineering, reliability, automation, and much more. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you'd like to learn more about Gremlin, please visit gremlin.com. And thanks again for listening.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ12. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ12 right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.